bucks of money, material, and everything to start the project and finish the project. And homeboy ghosted me, and a lot of people is like, oh, why don't you file a police report? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? But it's like, for me, one thing is like it's a hassle, but another thing is like if I grew up, and back home, and like I said, like religion is a big deal back home, and it's like one of the things they teach you is to forgive each other, not only each other, but it's like the Bible says, "Do unto others as you want others to do unto you." So yeah,
Right.
I feel like he did me wrong, but do I have to go as far as making a police report for like that amount of money? Maybe it was like a couple $1,000. I would, because I
Right.
want my money back. But it's like at this point, it's like it's probably gonna give him bad reviews, and probably less people are gonna hire him to do projects and whatnot. But it's like if that's how it is, I'm just gonna move on, forgive him as best as I could, and learn from it, learn from the experience. So, going forward, I might do a little things different, agree on
Yeah.
it, have a contract signed or something like that.
Right.
But
Right.
sometimes, those little things you just gotta let go. There's a saying we say, it's like let go and let God.
Yeah.
God will
Yeah.
intervene, God will intervene on your behalf.
Yeah.
And it's like for me, it's kind of like my upbringing, and that's from upbringing back home. And a lot of people in chat were like surprised, and they're like, I really like your perspective on the whole situation, and they were like vibing with it. I'm like, I'm glad you guys feel the same. And other people are like, do a police report. It's like, it's okay, just let it go. I'll just learn from it, and then approach it different next time.
Yeah, most definitely.
Right. Right. Right.
Steve, you have any questions?
Um. So, what's your view on like one? We already touched that. So, how do you feel about like the polys? What's your viewpoint on like polys in America? Like not embracing like the culture that you talk about that like you grew up on. More of like they probably know about it, but they don't want to embrace it. Like, what's your take on that?
To each their own. To each their own. I mean, if you grew up back home,
Yeah.
it's a different environment, different setting, different values. You grew up in the mainland, different setting, different values, different mentality. And if you don't want to, what was the term you used, Chief?
Embrace?
Yeah. So if you don't want to embrace it, then that's fine. That's fine by me. You know,
Yeah.
Hmm.
this I see no problem in it. It's like if if you if you grew up here, then there's nothing wrong with that. You're still someone. You still got Samoan blood. You're still identified as a someone, and your name might even be someone. You're still someone,
Right.
even if you don't
Yeah.
embrace the culture and whatnot. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But but to me, it's like there's nothing wrong with it. But like I said before, if you're willing to learn, if you're willing to embrace it, if you're willing to absorb it, if you're teachable, I'm telling you, there's a lot of people that are willing to teach you, that are willing to share the culture with you. And let me tell you, it's crazy. So we have so at UH Mono we used to have Polyfest, and oh my god, I think you'd see more different ethnicities there than there are Samoans. And they're just fascinated by the culture. They're
Yeah.
fascinated by the siva, Samoan dance, the
Hmm.
siva,
Yep.
bakabaki. And we did a umu, and they wanna come up, they wanna balu the popo, grate the coconut.
Right.
They
Right.
wanna they
Yeah.
wanna be part of the umu and stuff. And then to me that's amazing because I get to share my culture, my values with somebody who doesn't even know where American Samoa is on the map. You know what I'm saying? They
Yeah.
Right,
never
right.
even heard of it before then. And you know, them just coming and then just man, just they're like amazed by everything and they're just absorbing it. Man, it I don't know about you guys, but it hypes me up,
Yeah.
to see somebody
Yeah.
that wants to learn my language, that wants to learn my culture, that wants to, to learn the simple things that we do, make food and whatnot, just saying hello. Like you get a lot of them, they're gonna ask you, oh, how do you say hello in Samoan? It's like talofa. You know how you say aloha? It's at a T. Talofa,
Yeah.
it's pretty
Yeah.
similar.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, okay, cool. And then the next time you see it, and then they're like talofa. And it's like, hey, that's pretty cool. You taught them like a couple days ago and they got it down. And to me, to me, it's rewarding. I think that's the term I'm looking for to sum it all up. It's rewarding. But
Yeah.
like returning back to the question, if you don't want to embrace it, I don't see any problem wrong with it.
Right.
Just like
Right.
just like
Yeah.
somebody who, moved away from their culture, their island, and like kids I know that are Chinese, look Chinese, get Chinese name, and they don't speak Chinese. It's
Okay.
a different generation. So their parents
Yeah.
is traditional Chinese, but you know, living here in the mainland, for a couple generations down, they might not even speak Chinese anymore. I don't see anything wrong with that. It doesn't make them any less Chinese. Maybe when you go,
Right. Right.
maybe when you go China, they're like, "What kind of Chinese are you if you don't speak Chinese?"
Yeah.
So it might be different. And like I said, it's all setting. But for me, if you don't embrace your culture, the Samoa, then I have nothing wrong with it. But if you're willing to learn, I'm willing to teach. And like I said, there's a lot more. I believe people in Chad, and there's a lot more people on this island who are willing to teach. And like I feel it more so, the older generation that are willing to teach, that are willing to, push the envelope for to keep the culture, to keep the language and whatnot. Because I had a teacher in the University of Hawaii, Tumua, and
Uh
she's
huh.
she's like pretty big. She has a chief title and whatnot. But that
Uh
was
huh.
one of her biggest push in life was, to teach someone language, to teach someone culture. So we were in the class, we would do like Ava ceremonies and stuff like that. We would do laumas, and we would learn about the oral traditions and cultures of Samoa. Tuna
Yeah.
mafata, sina, all of that
Yep.
stuff. And like I said, there's nothing wrong if you don't want to embrace it. But if you do want to embrace it, there's a lot of resources, a lot of people willing to teach it. I'm definitely one of them.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
No, those stories definitely need to be told more often, especially to the younger folks, like the Tuna and Fata story. Like that one. That one is that really is history that like these children need to hear. So maybe one of these days we can tell all.
Yeah.
Bet you there's a book in the library that probably has tuna and fata in there,
Oh,
or Sina or something. Because I know
right,
here
right.
at UH Manoa, there's a lot of someone literature. There's a lot of someone books and whatnot. And like I said, Tu Mua herself also wrote a bunch of books, kind of like a dictionary, and
Uh huh.
there's a book that's just dedicated to just oral tradition. All those stories and whatnot. It's so cool. And just learning about it like more and more, it's just man, it just makes you fall in love with our culture. For me, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. No, I was lucky that I get to hear certain stories like with like Nafanua, because I'm a Tonu Maipea, so I get to hear those. I get to hear those stories firsthand, so that's always awesome. Um, no, did you guys have any more questions, or or what do you guys want to do?
somebody had a question in chat. So Bora was like, "What is your view on corruption that's going
Ooh,
on back
yes.
home, drugs and
Yes.
domestic violence?" So
Yeah, that's a good one.
yeah,
Yeah.
so my view on the corruption back home, it's like
I'll be right back.
you
I'll be
know
right back.
I'm so for like us being independent and whatnot, but when I see like federal money, federal aid, you know,
Hmm.
given
Yeah.
to our island for our people, and it gets used and abused in some way, form, or fashion, and it comes up on the news and whatnot, and it's kind of like why I'm glad the FBI is there and whatnot because man, you got to think about it. Some of these things have been going on forever, and it's because there's no checks and balances, you know, to keep these things in check. So just they just go on rampant and rampant. And be that as it may, our island is not the only island. Believe it or not,
Right, right.
these kind of things are common. It's pretty damn common in smaller islands.
Mm.
And it's because of that. There's no checks and balance. And that's why I kind of like, the FBI stepping in and whatnot. And, a lot of people are like, oh, yeah. So what, you're pro FBI now? You don't mind them having like jurisdiction here? I was like, I, if there wasn't so much corruption and drugs and
Right.
whatnot,
Hmm.
the FBI wouldn't be there in the first place,
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
you know? So if the FBI is going to help resolve this thing and them having kind of jurisdiction over
Hmm.
there, then I'm all for it because that aid is
Right,
for the
right.
people, not for somebody else's brand new palipalangi. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
It's not for somebody's two-story brand new house, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely not.
Yeah. And it's like, another thing on there, they're asking about drugs. It's like, man, growing up, there wasn't really much, drug problem. And as I got older, it's like it's becoming more and more and more rampant.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah.
when you think about it, there's got to be a loophole where all these drugs are coming from. And I think it just all ties back up in, the higher up in the corruption going on, because, all these containers, when they get shipped, custom checks them. So
Right.
how
Yeah.
are they, how are they managing, how do they manage to ship these containers of drugs back home and whatnot? There's a loophole.
Yeah.
There's a loophole somewhere in the system. I'm not no expert
Hmm.
in any of this. I'm not no investigator or anything, but it's
Right.
like, how do those things get there? It's man, if they get checked by custom here,
Hmm.
get checked by custom when they get there, how do they not find these things? And the
Yeah.
only thing I could come up with is there's a loophole there, and somebody's using that loophole. You know, somebody knows something. Oh, I didn't see anything. You know, put a little cash on the side and whatnot, pay them off or whatever they got to do. Me, I'm not like I said, I'm not for any of that and whatnot.
Right.
But if we need the FBI to step in and take over, and I'm all for it if they can get rid of it because it's our people, it's
Yeah.
our island,
Yeah.
it's
Yep.
it's it's our families, you know, like 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 the saying goes, "Kukikiaay nga nga kaukuan." We're almost all related in one way or another because we're Samoan.
Yeah.
And for domestic violence, man, I think those people gotta go to church more often.
Yeah.
Something.
Domestic, yeah, domestic violence, and man, I think I'm not like I said, I'm not no expert, but like uh, me growing up, I did not see no domestic violence growing up in my household. My dad never, ever like laid a hand on my mom. My dad never beat my mom up. But I do have friends that I know that, their dad, beat up their mom and whatnot. And it's like, man, it's rough. And like I said, that's where the broken families come in. I was talking about, earlier. And I don't know what to say about that. I know there's a